I'm going to talk about the breeding behavior. I'll go to the end at first and thank Eagle Club for letting me to use the data. So I'm not a biologist, so if there are some terms wrong, then forgive me. First, I looked at 2 seasons. I started with 2016 when we had a camera on Anna and Uku nest. And the second was 2013 with Linda and Sulev. With Anna and Uku had 3 nestlings, and Linda and Sulev had 1. But unfortunately, Linda and Sulev's season was cut short as the camera broke after ringing. With these 2 pairs, it's easy to separate female and male, as in both pairs, females have rings. What I did was I used a database that is in the archive, and it's basically a list of links to all the pictures. I was searching for certain events like the eagles changing place, if they were delivering something to the nest, feeding the young, and other such things. What I did was I went through all the pictures, checked the forum, because there's over 100,000 pictures, and it's easy to miss some important events. And then I just logged every event with the beginning and end, and that's with 1 minute interval. Here are some numbers. And as you can see, it's quite time-consuming to look at all the recordings. All in all, I managed to see 4,500 different events during these 2 seasons. And mostly it was just changing the places, but also it seems that it takes about 20 copulations for 3 eggs, and they're turning the egg during incubation for 400 or even more times. Afterwards, I took the time of the eagles in the nest. And what I wanted to know is, as Janis mentioned about the ringing, that the eagles stay away for a long time after the ringing. But I had a question if it's affecting the eagle for a longer period, not just this 24 hours maybe. Of course, for that, 2 seasons isn't enough, because as you can see, even during the incubation, the pairs are acting differently. In 2013, the female was incubating for 65% of the time, but in 2016, it was only 44% of the time. And that's during the daytime, because in Estonia we have light switches on the cameras to save energy. Also, now you may think that what happens during the night, and for that I made sort of a graph where the red bars are when the female is in the nest and the blue ones are when the male is in the nest. And I managed to find only 1 case when the male was last when the camera was shut and first in the morning. So I think that the female must incubate during the night. And thus, over 70% of the time, the female is incubating. And that's what the literature says as well. But during the small chicks, the adult stays in the nest for about 14 days. After that, there are longer breaks, 15 minutes or some. And then it was interesting that by the time of ringing, that's about the age of 40 days, the male is in the nest for less than 15% of the time. So perhaps the male is bringing food. That would be logical, but if you look at the deliveries, then at first it seems that it is the case the male is the main food provider. But now if we look who and when is bringing the food, then as 2013 was cut short, it's not the best to look at, but in 2016 you can see that there is a change during the 40 days of age. That's the time of ringing, and that's also the time when the male, after what the male doesn't bring any food. It's really occasional. So from that, I assumed that perhaps the eaglets won't need more food, even though they're growing. That's the daily norm for them. So as you can see, the black line is for 2013, and that was one eaglet in the nest. And 2016, there were 3 eaglets. And the dotted line is if you, I took the food items in 2016 per one nestling. So you see that the nestling, there are less food per nestling. So I don't have I don't know why, but the male should bring food even later, because they probably need that. Okay, the next was the time the parents spent feeding the young. And it seems that the time per nestling is constant, so it takes parents 3 times longer to feed 3 nestlings. But then again, one feeding time, usually they fed for 8 to 12 minutes at a time. From that, probably one nestling had always full crops, and 3 had always empty crops, because I think that 8 minutes is the time to eat one fish. And now and per day they were feeding for 1 hour per nestling when the chicks were about 20 days old. Afterwards, the time was shorter, because but the nestlings didn't eat themselves. So I don't know, maybe they were on diet after. Yes, and now as we have this season, so yeah. Okay. Yeah, but that's all, because, well, we have a biological break, and now you can ask more questions.
Thank you, and we have quite a bit of time to ask any questions from the Triin, or if someone just missed a question from the other lecturers, we have a few minutes possibilities for that as well. Please.
I have a question in relation to your excellent work, but it is actually not to you, but more to other white-tailed eagle researchers, because probably you will not be able to answer that. It is in relation to your finding what presumably happens during night, because you don't know, you just assume that female is incubating based on early morning, late evening. When we started to use web camera, not web cameras, trail cameras at stork nests, and they are different in this regard that they operate at night, then the biggest surprise to me was amount of actions that happen during night. 1/3 of copulations, nest building entirely during night, a lot of action. And I wonder, and I ask, are there no information whether there are no change of incubation during night or during darkness?
I think that is actually a question for Latvians, because their camera is running through the night. So, yeah.
Generally, because it appears that the black stork, which is also assumed to be a daily active bird, is a lot of active at night. So my question is this the same with white-tailed eagle?
Yeah.
I think I can comment somewhat regarding this night activity, because I have at least once observed an incubation change in the middle of the night. Because the Latvian cameras, they have been working also during the night times. And this particular night, it was raining hard in the evening, and usually the eagles don't like rainy weather. They can live with it, but they don't enjoy it at all. And they don't like to move in rainy weather. And so the male stayed in the nest. He was ringed, so I knew it was the male. And in the morning, I was surprised to see that the female was in the nest. And I searched through the video recordings. It was pitch black all the time, but I fast forwarded it, and then at about 3 a.m. in the morning, I heard the sound of incoming wings, and then some rustling, and then outgoing wings. And the incubation change happened during the night. And also this particular couple, they never mated on the nest. They came in very late in the evening when it was almost dark. I could see the white tails. They did something on the nest, and then they flew out to an adjacent tree, and then they mated. The male sang the mating song. And that's how we knew that they were making eggs. They never mated on the nest. Linda and Sulev, they mated on the nest. And all the others have been somewhere more discreetly. Except those failed attempts at the Latvian nest during the last 2 seasons.
So, yeah.
Вопрос, может быть, и не только к вам, а вот коллеги, которые выступали. Как удалось окольцевать взрослых особей? Поскольку докладчик говорил, что самки были окольцованы. Спасибо.
See oli pigem siia kolleegile.
Sorry, я не понял вашего вопроса. Вопрос был, как взрослые птицы были окольцованы?
Да, каким способом? Взрослые именно.
Он думает, что кольцевали вы, когда они уже были в гнезде.
No. These birds were ringed as juveniles in the nest. Они были кольцованы как птенцы в гнезде.
Now we have time for questions.
Sorry, but I have one small comment. You can go to the poster room, and Ahmed, there's still your poster going on. It's not there yet. Yeah. Because yes, but this is an interesting poster about the happenings into this Durbanest that is empty now for 2 years, and actually a lot of things have been going on there.
So,
And based on answer and this little discussion, I would just once suggest a very obvious thing, that if we do not know something and we just expect that it should be like nothing happens at night, for example, it's better not to make such expectations, because there are a hell lot of things going on we don't know about it.
night is dark and darkness hides everything, as we know.